There it goes. All right, there we go. All right, good evening,
Perfect.
everyone. How's it going?
Pretty
Good, how
good.
are you?
All right, doing well. All right, we will start with Miss Ling.
Perfect. All right. So I was just going to we're going over virtual versus in-person meetings and kind of the advantages and disadvantages that come with that. So I'll start off with the pros of in-person meetings. It definitely allows the ability to have a more fluid conversation. You can pick up on nonverbal cues such as body language, facial expressions, and like the tone of everyone in the room with you. It just additionally it helps support more easily conversations, keep it flowing, and you can definitely brainstorm more creatively together versus being on a virtual setting. It just makes the interactions feel more personable in that way. And then I'll go to some disadvantages that come with in person meetings. So it can become time consuming and costly because in some um, different places you'll have people that work for a company that are living in Texas or in the companies based in Oklahoma. And so they might have to fly out, they might have to drive, and that takes up time and that takes up money. So to have the ability to just be able to tune in virtually can definitely be an advantage. And so also it can you can get distracted easier when you're in person and conversation can go a little bit off topic. And when you're in a virtual setting, you can definitely be more on time, be more efficient in that sort of aspect. And now I'll move on to some advantages that come with virtual meetings. So it becomes more efficient, especially time and cost. You don't have to fly out. You can tune in wherever you are. Some people have busy lives and they can't take the time out of their day to be there in person. So that is definitely an advantage. It can cause you to be more on agenda when you're virtual. You have a set time, you know what you're talking about, and it can be quicker that way. And then some cons on virtual meetings. They lack the personability, the face to face. You can't really read the body language in the room, and you as well can't necessarily understand where everyone's tone is coming from. So that can definitely cause issues within the relationships and who you're working with. And lastly, the dependability on technology can become an issue. You never really know what technology is going to be. You can have issues. And so it can derail the efficiency in the room and kind of what everyone's going off of. So that's all I have for the advantages and disadvantages. Whoever else would like to go.
Awesome. I
All
can go
right.
second.
Yep.
If y'all are fine with that.
Of course, of course. Go ahead.
Do we want to go over our questions at the end of us talking, or do we want to do that all at the end so it can be kind of more of an open discussion?
Let's make it be more of an open discussion because I think it might be a little disjointed if
Yeah.
if you're okay with that, Miss Ling,
Yeah,
if
that's
you're
fine
okay
by
with me
me.
calling you that.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome. So, in my opinion, I don't think that there's either like one that's inherently better than the other in terms of in-person versus virtual. There's many advantages to both that allow their specific setting to properly like enhance that conversation that you're having. Different factors determine that, such as like the industry, the purpose of the meeting, location of where the employees are, and stuff like that. Understanding those factors, in my opinion, allows you to like better understand which one is a better fit. For example, so in-person meeting, one of the pros of that is increased engagement. So distractions being eliminated from, so in my opinion, like I'm more distracted at my house just because there's more stuff going on. I can focus better in a in-person conversation because I'm looking at them face to face. I'm more engaged with that rather than being like at my home office, like right now I'm in my bedroom or like at a Starbucks. One statistic that I saw that kind of backs that up, in-person meetings, this is according to Stanford Business, in-person meetings generate nearly 20% more ideas than that of a virtual meeting. For example, the construction industry, that's the industry that I'm planning on going in, needs this a
Hmm.
lot more because there's a lot of a need for transparent and open communication. You have the owner, the contractors, the architects, all that. They need to constantly be involved. And there's a lot of big decisions in that an in-person meeting where it has a lot more engagement is much more beneficial than a virtual meeting where you're not really paying attention. Some people it works better for, but that's how I feel about that. In-person meetings, one of the cons of that is time commitment. So In construction, for example, everybody's typically gathered around the job site. It's a lot easier for people to just be gathered in one spot at a moment's notice. But in the business world, there's a lot of factors. People can be, doing business with other companies, and it's kind of hard to get those two companies to meet in the same spot. Or like my dad a lot, he would travel whenever I was younger. So he'd be in Detroit whenever their headquarters was in Dallas, stuff like that. You can't have everybody in the same spot at the same time. But time commitment wise, it wastes a lot of time and resources trying to get those people together for an in-person meeting. For some industries, it makes a lot of sense to have a quick chat over the computer. Same with like the type of decision that they're making. If it's a quick, like, hey, I need a clarification on this, then that's fine. But whenever you are having that kind of conversation, you don't need it an in-person meeting, in my opinion. So virtual meetings, one of the pros of that is being able to record the meeting like we are now. Some people might not be able to access the meeting right then and there. They might be busy with other work that they're doing, not necessarily like personal stuff, but they might be in their own meeting and can't. It's kind of hard to gather everybody in the same spot at once. So people that are constantly moving from point A to point B, it allows them to watch that video over again. It's unfortunate because they're not necessarily engaged, but they can still get a recap of everything that was said. Lastly, so like Lane mentioned, the main flaws of virtual meetings are the presence of distractions and the lack of face-to-face communication. One of the ones that I noticed was that there are fewer networking opportunities. It's kind of hard to make that personal connection over a computer. Whereas, in person, you can have the handshake, you can share a meal or a drink, or uh, just that face-to-face conversation as a whole really encourages that. So, sharing a meal, yeah, like I said, sharing a meal, being in the same room, it can be a lot better than what a computer screen can do for you. But that's all that I have to say. Chase, if you want to start.
All right, sounds good to me. Well, remote working is indeed quite the fascinating subject. We must all agree on that. However, when I think about it, I think what happened recently with Doge recently, and then of course Twitter some years back, because they had remote workers and stuff, but a lot of them actually were not doing what they were supposed to. We'll get into that in a second. But the pros of remote work, though, in my opinion, are agreeing with Mr. Landon. Flexibility is a big part of the pros of remote work, in other words. But as what happens in life, sometimes people just, things happen. They may be moved away, which brings up Doge again. So they moved away from the physical office location. It doesn't, so they don't have a commute, so they don't have to travel as far, so it saves gas money. And many employees have found that through multiple research articles that they have an increased productivity. According to the website that I have here from Team Dynamics, they have remote work has grown by an astounding 159% since COVID broke out. 82% of company leaders plan to allow employees to work remotely at least some of the time as things continue moving on. Um, it gives employees a healthier lifestyle so they can balance their work life better. They are able to make better food, better choices. They can work at standing desks. They can and also improve their emotional well-being from taking care of all that. So the standing desk they can get. I was trying to think of the word for those little treadmills, that you can,
Hmm.
they're the little ones, you can walk on them and stuff. People love using those. So they're not also forced to be working under those intense lights with the buzzing, depending on if you're having an office job or not. I've heard people say that buzzing gets a little annoying after some time. Um, Overall, it makes employees feel they have a better work-life balance. They aren't traveling as much, so they can take their personal lives much more effectively while also making sure that they meet their company goals and making sure they keep on balance with all that. However, as with all things, it's not all good news. Research has also found that employees feel much more isolated while working, especially those who are not so attuned to technology, like older workers, for example. Not that there's anything wrong with it, of course, but the blurring of boundaries also happens a lot more often. People can end up working for example, from their bedroom or needing to work from inconvenient locations, um, to try to meet up with their companies, do the meetings and whatnot. So it leads to a further increased risk of burnout if that's all that they do all day, um, because they don't have a better way how to set their situation up. Many argue that remote working also has more collaboration, but surprisingly, research has shown that it's the complete opposite. Collaboration tends to fall apart. There is indeed, as we've mentioned before, an increased risk of distractions coming from pets, family, chores, anything like that. Earlier, for example, I had a team meeting with someone else to try to meet up with two different objectives to help one person. And then, but anyways, I had a cat that came by, tapped on my shoulder, lost complete track of where I was, but I guess he just wanted to join the conversation. Um, it also has an increased dependency on technology in general. So if what happened like last week was I was in Branson for a little getaway, and they started to have the snowstorm. Well, at least for 15 minutes while I was there, the power went out. Didn't have my phone. My phone wasn't working because, it's a resort. You're supposed to not really detox from technology, but, because I was getting my work done, of course. But when all that happened, because the snow started to really pour in, I lost the ability to just like do my work. So it was pretty much being stuck there, like, oh crap, what am I gonna do here? So it could result, if it was to say even more so, like college work's bad, but if it was something that could have been costly for a company, that could have resulted in almost millions of dollars of loss right there on the point. So, I know I've got a lot to say. I love talking. Sorry about that. But on the other hand, on-site work has pros and cons as well. The pros of on-site work, it does actually increase the chances of collaboration because, you're going to be in the same office space as others. So you'll want to be shaking hands. You want to be talking with others. It makes teamwork better. You can even get those whiteboards and draw on them. Just, do all sorts of stuff like that. It assists with supervision and training for newer employees as they can have a better eye kept on them, because, a lot of managers and such probably don't necessarily have the time to always be on Zoom calls with everyone all the time when they're really busy, like around the holidays, for example, when I hear that it gets extremely busy. And finally, on-site working helps with confidentiality. So a risk that does happen with remote working is people can hack into your devices and take the information. So if you're trying to send, like company, well, I wouldn't say like company secrets exactly, but you know what I mean? Um, but they could easily take it. The bad side,
Yeah.
though, of on-site working is you do have to find ways to commute, and it can be extremely costly for operational, like everything, right? From gas to needing to make sure that the building has power, running water, running everything, running internet and stuff. They also feel they have less flexibility from rigid work hours and environment impacting employee morale and productivity in general. However, just like with home life, colleagues can pose just as much of a distraction as family and chores. Some might even say they pose more of a risk for distractions because there are things that I've heard happen sometimes. I've read those stories online, but eventually leading up to a stressful environment. Office environments can sometimes be very stressful, and because of those lights, as I've said before, that was what I was trying to talk about. They said they cause anxiety because of the constant buzzing. Anyways, anyone have any questions they want to ask or anything?
I'm okay.
No, that
If
was
y'all want to just
awesome.
move, yeah. If y'all want to move to the open-ended questions, I'm okay with starting that.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean,
Perfect.
I gathered a lot of this information. I've been writing down in a journal and stuff, trying to make sure I got all the notes down. That's why it took me so long to join up. Anyways, please continue.
Awesome.
Um,
Lane, do you want to go ahead and start with yours?
sure. Should I ask the question and do y'all want to respond and then we can just kind of talk back and forth?
Yeah, let's go
Yeah,
question by
sounds great to
question.
me.
Okay, perfect. So, question I had was, how do you think the absence of nonverbal communication in virtual meetings impacts collaboration and decision making? So, kind of, I guess, just based off like body language and all that.
I'll go first. So for myself, I'm much more of a listener than a talker. Whenever I'm in a conversation like that, I like to hear what other people have to say, and I'll chime in whenever I feel like I need to. But for the most part, I'm giving off a lot more nonverbal cues than I am verbal. Because of this, it allows people to see that I'm listening. Can't really do that in a virtual meeting. So sometimes it can come off as, oh, I'm not paying attention, stuff like that. And that's the same with nonverbal cues. It allows people to see like how people feel about certain decisions being made. Because in a virtual meeting, like big decisions, you can kind of read people's body language in person, like if they feel uncomfortable with some of the stuff that's being said. You can't really get that with virtual meetings.
Very true, very true. On top of that, like we've also said, you can't necessarily meet up for handshakes. You can't be sharing, well,
Yeah.
not sharing anything, but you can't be paying for each other's coffees and stuff. You just can't do stuff like that. So with remote meeting, it does lead to, as I've mentioned, increased feelings of isolation. And for some people, that does cause extreme amounts of anxiety and whatnot. And it can lead to some pretty negative effects on the workplace. But, you know. So, do you have anything you want to say, Lane?
No, yeah, that was awesome. I definitely agree. I think it's easier to have an efficient conversation when you can read someone's body language and you can get a little bit more of your personality out and kind of your cues. I'm the same way. I definitely am more of an active listener, and I like when people can make eye contact with me and kind of just
Yeah.
understand where my body language is and my tone. And so on virtual meetings, it can come across as like you're not really paying attention or you don't have a lot to say, but it's really just about not wanting to like interrupt and wanting to make sure they know they're being heard.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll go on with my second question. So,
Awesome.
with the rise of remote work, do you believe we'll see a shift towards virtual meetings being the normal, or will you see in-person meetings still hold value in certain scenarios?
I'll take this one again too. Like I said before, I believe that there's certain industries in which it makes in-person meetings far more valuable. So still holding that value in certain scenarios, but some meetings require a lot of collaboration and engagement that virtual meetings don't allow. However, there are like a lot of small decisions like catching up, asking for clarification, stuff like that, that makes a virtual meeting a lot more efficient rather than having to gather even if it's just two or three people, rather than having to gather all of them, just being like, hey, I want to set up a quick Zoom call, clarify this with everybody real quick, just make sure everybody's in the same loop. And then it's done. You don't have to worry about making it this whole big deal for something insignificant.
Yeah, it makes total sense there. It makes it much more convenient, much more reliable, and therefore much more effective for everyone in general because, you don't have to commute, as we've said, and pretty
Mhm.
much if it's just something quick, I mean, you can either do a Zoom call, you can flat out just do a phone call sometimes if it's not really anything too big, clarify
Mhm.
some things, that's pretty much it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I 100% agree. I think it really depends on your scenario. I worked for a company over the summer, and half of the company worked virtually, and half of us were at the company. And so it really, if it was really important meeting and they need to be there, they would. But for everyday check-ins or kind of just going over the schedule, there was no reason to be in person. And so
Yeah.
I think it really just depends on the scenario. But yeah.
No, it's definitely beneficial having virtual because I mean, I didn't even really think of that before COVID. Like the idea of online class was never a thought.
Hmm.
So I don't think that it'd be like a shift to the norm, but I think COVID kind of made people realize like, oh, this makes things a lot easier
Hmm.
and a lot more efficient. You don't always need to be in person.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, COVID's changed a whole lot. And to answer the question about do we think it'll be a lot more prevalent or not, I mean, it's really kind of hard to say. I mean, a lot of people are saying yes, a lot of people are saying no. To me personally, I'm kind of indifferent. I mean, whatever, like you said, whatever fits the situation more. If it's something that needs like confidentiality or importance, probably should do in person or letter or something, not just, doing it where someone can easily hop in. It's like, what is the word I'm thinking of? Like doing it on a radio, basically. One of those old, where you press the button and it calls. People can just tune into that channel and, well, guess what? All those secrets everybody now knows. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Awesome. So I have a couple of questions that I'd like to hear y'all's opinion on. Question one, when might the benefits of an in-person meeting outweigh the time commitment and usage of resources that it takes up?
I'll go first. I feel um, like I said, depending on scenario, I think if they're wanting to get everyone together and kind of bounce back and forth creatively and get that more brainstorming sense, and if it's something important, they need to work on a project and they need everyone there, I think that's super important. Um, it really, yeah, just depends on the scenario, like I did for my company when we needed to get together and make a game plan for um retreat we were doing to Canada. We needed everybody there and we needed everybody to figure out what they're going to do and kind of go over the plans and figure out what was the best action to take. So I think if it's a super important topic within the company and it's going to affect the company deeply, that it would definitely be beneficial for everybody to be there. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Um, Trying to think of like other great examples, because we pretty much already talked about if it's something light or something easy, you just pretty much can do it remotely as much as you want, or
I think, in my opinion, I think that really is like the main answer. Like it just depends on the scenario. I mean, we've
Yeah.
already mentioned that a handful of times. I also wanted to mention, I think that it's worth it to use that time commitment and usage of resources if it will prevent further issues. Like if you're like, okay, we need everybody here, we want people to understand what's going on. You don't want it to bite you later whenever that person was not in the loop. You want all the accountability that you can get with the in-person meeting.
Mhm.
yeah, very solid points there. Very solid points.
Awesome. Second question that I have. So I mentioned earlier about the ability to record a message or record a meeting. Do you think that this might lead to a lack of accountability with people just kind of not showing up to the meeting or using it as an excuse, or do you think it would promote efficiency like it was meant to do?
I would say it depends. The ability to be able to record a meeting is an amazing aspect, and I feel like a lot of people have definitely benefited from being able to use that. Um, it depends on the person, but I think it could gauge, like, give a boss a good idea of how efficient that person is and if they're actually tuning in. And I think it could definitely boost, like, okay, well, this person is on top of it and they're listening to what is being recorded and they're getting their work done, and this employee is not. And so it could be beneficial for the boss to look upon what their employees are doing, but I think also you have to be a very accountable person to make sure you are tuning in and you are listening, or it's just going to bite you in the butt at the end of the day, and the company. So I think it's very beneficial for the fact that we all have our own lives and we are all busy and we're on our own time schedule. So it definitely has some pros and cons there, but I would say it depends on the person and how efficient they want to be.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, it makes
exactly what I
sense.
said too. I mean, it separates people into, or it allows a boss to separate people in like the group of, oh, they just want to make a paycheck and they're
Hmm.
actually engaged and want to succeed at this company.
Hmm.
Absolutely. Since I'm getting a degree in business administration, I know exactly what you're talking about. 'Cause that's one thing I've always wanted to
Yeah.
do. Uh, yeah, definitely being able to tune in and being like, this person's pulling their weight, this person's not. I might need to meet up with them later, and we need to have a little discussion about, maybe they need to improve their work a little bit, or they might be needing to look for a new situation if it gets that severe. But yeah. And
Yep.
definitely with the ability to record, I think it would definitely promote productivity, because you can't exactly be slipping away. If you say, I need you to be here at this time in a call, they're not there, that's not accountability. They need to be held accountable for it, period.
Hmm.
No exceptions whatsoever. So, I mean, kind of hitting it like I was bringing up Doge and all that, but kind of hitting it like that, if you're there and you're supposed to be there, good. And if you're doing your work, good. If you're not, well, I guess you need to go find somewhere else because you're
Yep.
eating up company time.
Awesome. Well, that was all that I had for my questions, Chase, if you want to hop onto yours.
All right, I'll pop onto mine real quick. Let me scroll down here. Okay. So, how do remote and on-site work environments impact the creativity and innovation of employees? And what strategies do you guys think can be implemented to maximize these aspects in both settings? Starting with whoever wants to go first, or do you want me to go first?
Whoever, y'all can go first.
Okay. I'll answer it
Yeah,
first to kind
that's a
of.
thinker. I'm gonna have you start on that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll definitely get started on that and then see what you guys think. So, remote work can enhance creativity by allowing employees to work in comfortable and definitely personalized environments. It leads to fresh perspectives, excuse me, and innovative ideas, but it might also limit spontaneous brainstorming sessions and face-to-face collaboration, which are often sources of very creative sparks. On-site work promotes creativity through immediate communication and collaboration with colleagues. However, the physical presence of a team can also lead to impromptu discussions and further idea exchanges. However, the structured environment may sometimes stifle or even outright destroy the out of the box thinking due to routine and time constraints and strategies. To get on to this, organizations can implement virtual brainstorming sessions, collaborative tools, and flexible work hours to maximize creativity in both cases. Kind of a general fix, if you will.
Yeah, that's
Awesome.
kind of how I feel about it. Like I think that like being at home allows someone to think in their own space, feel as creative as they want to be, but it does like for example, whenever I'm at work and I have an idea that pops into my head, I want to, bounce that idea off of other people and see what they think. And it's hard to do that when you're at your own house. But I don't really know how I feel about being in person because in person it's different because you have to kind of think inside the box. I mean, it's kind of representative of like you are at work, you are in your office, you have to think inside the box. Not that that's necessarily true, but that's kind of I mean, that's how I feel whenever I'm at work like that. And I do believe that it can destroy the creativity of somebody a little bit, but I think you just have to kind of find a balance between the two.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I
my
completely
oops,
agree.
sorry,
Sorry.
please continue. Sorry about that.
No, sorry, you're so good.
Okay,
Um,
real quick because I wanted to chime in on that because that was a really good point. In my entrepreneur imagination class that I'm taking right now, they say that actually they've said previously that I mean to me it's really kind of tragic at how workplace and in-person stuff can do that. I mean, it's one thing that is really nice to always have is just to even if it's never going to be for anything practical, just always have that bit of imagination, that creativity, right? To think of out of box solutions because you never know. I mean, for example, you work in construction or want to work in construction. If people never went to go wander the environment back in like the 1400s and look at like, oh, hey, here's an arch, or what was it? There was something like that, or one of those kind of shapes from in the environment. They would have never gathered, hey, if I take this idea and I put these materials together to form that creation, maybe it might make it more efficient.
Yeah,
If you didn't
definitely.
have the imagination, it would never happen. Would have never come to
Yeah.
fruition.
Yeah, for sure. I would say, like, I've experienced just it really depends on the work environment you're in, because in some environments you feel the openness to be able to go up to your partners and brainstorm with them, and then in some it's a little bit more stiff and you're kind of you don't have strong relationships. So I worked for a company over the summer and I was very close with everyone there, and so I had the ability to just kind of put ideas into their head and ask them if it was a good idea or what they thought about it. And being able to do that really just gave me a lot more creativity and it gave me the ability to just have ideas and have support with it. But if I was in an environment where I didn't feel comfortable sharing these ideas, I don't think I would have been looked at upon as someone that was creative, and I don't think people would have saw me as someone that could come up with ideas and just be energetic and into it. So I think
Yeah,
being able to have an environment where you feel comfortable is very beneficial.
for
Absolutely,
sure.
yeah. My sister, for example, she loves coffee, and one thing that as a barista she learned to do was to take like she just like smell the beans, which is kind of weird to say, but and then she'd figure out what blends work best together, right? But that does take that creative spark as well, because if you never wanted to push the boundaries and figure out what would work and what didn't, well, you know. So then, anyone else want to add anything, or because I just got a
I'm good.
notification that we're running out of time and it comes
Oh,
quick.
well, we're on the last question anyway, so we're almost
Oh,
there.
yep. So, in what ways do remote and on-site work arrangements influence team dynamics and collaboration? And how can organizations effectively address the unique challenges and opportunities presented by each model? So, to start off with, to kind of bounce some ideas around, remote
Yeah.
work can absolutely strengthen individual productivity, but may pose challenges to team dynamics due to physical separation and reliance on digital communication. Building trust and maintaining clear communication is a necessity for overcoming these mentioned challenges, as on site work facilitates stronger team dynamics through face to face interactions and immediate feedback from team members, which is definitely useful. But it does also foster a sense of belonging and camaraderie amongst employees. However, on the flip side, this can also lead to potential conflicts due to close proximity and differing work styles between different work generations. And finally, organizations can adopt for regular virtual check-ins, team building activities, and transparent communication practices to address challenges and leverage the strengths of both remote and on-site work arrangements.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure. Sorry, you can go.
you can go first. You can go first.
Okay. I would say, I mean, obviously pros and cons to both, but from firsthand experience, working for the company again, we had half of them not in person. And something that did come up was they didn't feel as connected with our company as they wanted to. Everyone in person was very connected and very on top of things. And it was easy to communicate because you're together all the time. And people remotely, it you can't just go up to a person and like tell them how you're thinking. You have to send them an email, you have to call them, and it takes a lot more effort to do that. And so something the company had to work on was reaching out more to those virtual members and making sure that those bonds and those relationships were good, because if you don't have a good team dynamic, that's going to affect your work. And so I think it's very important for companies to make sure they're checking in on their employees and making sure that they're understanding what's going on in person if they are virtual. But overall, it's just, I think, important to really focus on the team dynamic and relationships.
Yeah. That's kind of how I feel about my job too. So I work at Stillwater Building Center, and one of the things that I do is we'll get orders for hardware that we ship out to houses around Stillwater. And I work with my coworker Will on stuff like that. And me and him were there every day. We have about the same schedule, so we're constantly helping each other out. We are very productive together until we need to contact a salesman, and all of our salesmen are outside salesmen. They do all their work. They bounce around from Tulsa to Norman to Stillwater, everywhere. The second that we have to reach them remotely, we hit that roadblock and it kind of just stalls our productivity. We kind of notice each other. We're just kind of standing around doing nothing, waiting for a response back. I think that it just kind of it doesn't necessarily stop people from being productive. It just kind of like makes them hit a little fork in the road that slows it down.
Mhm.
Such as the problems as it goes with outsourcing a lot of the time. Um, with creativity, I mean, this is kind of off topic, but for example, this was buzzing all over X and stuff. Um, so Shrek 5, for example, right? I mean, we all know the originals. We all probably enjoyed them when we were young, but the new animation style, a lot of people, myself included, just cannot stand it. It looks terrible. It looks nothing like DreamWorks would have ever released, ever, right? Well, I mean, that's what I'm reading, but what do you guys think about it? Do you guys think that because of outsourcing, it could lead to the stifling of productivity and creativity, or what do you guys think?
Yeah, I think like differing ideas on how things should be done could kind of just create some challenges in like terms of like work conflict, like people being unhappy with the way that something that they work towards, whether like for example, the Shrek 5 movies, maybe someone wasn't coming up with the design aspect of it, but maybe they were working towards a script and then their work is just widely known as people being like, oh, this is terrible. This is not how it should be. Even though they put their time and effort to it, the people that, they outsourced ruined it for them.
Yeah, completely. That is indeed how it goes. What do you think, Lane, about stuff like that with outsourcing and all that?
I mean, I think it's definitely a learning curve for everyone there. I think if they thought that was the best case scenario and that's what they should do, they put all their hard work into it and they tried, and maybe some feedback wasn't great, but that is definitely a learning curve and they can choose to outsource from there again or not.
Mm.
Yeah, that is indeed how it works. I mean, yeah. Hmm. So then, do we give I mean, we still have about 4 minutes and 30 seconds left to go, which is why I was trying to fluff it out there a little bit. But
Well,
you
I
guys
mean, I
want to,
think we covered everything, but
Yeah.
all right.
team
Well,
No, that was a
collaboration
good discussion.
activities, if you want to cover
yeah.
that real quick, see what kinds of ideas could balance. I mean, we still got a full 4 minutes to cover if you guys want to.
I mean, I think
Um,
we hit
mhm.
our 15 minutes if y'all want to call it
Yeah.
good,
No,
but
we definitely went well over 15 minutes.
For
for
sure, for
sure.
sure. But hey, it's always good having these kinds of good conversations. Love
Yeah.
having them.
Yeah. Well, if y'all want to call it good, we'll keep in touch, and I'm glad we got to talk.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Maybe we should give out our conclusions. I mean, we still have 3 minutes. I'm just trying to figure
Okay.
out any way to pad it out if we want to.
I can read my conclusion if you'd like.
Sure.
Sure.
Okay, so I just said in conclusion, both in person and virtual meetings have distinct advantages and disadvantages. In person meetings are great for building relationships and fostering dynamic discussions, but they come with their higher costs of scheduling challenges. Virtual meetings, while more convenient and cost effective, lack personability and can hinder technical issues. The right choice depends on the goals of the meeting and the needs for them.
Yep. I'll go ahead with mine. So, just hitting on those topics that I mentioned before about the pros and cons. In-person meetings are far more beneficial when it comes to increasing engagement and fostering open, transparent communication. However, it can cause a major time commitment and use up a lot of resources that some might consider a waste of time. Virtual meetings are far more beneficial in accommodating those who are not readily available with stuff like, recording meetings, being able to just open your laptop and do it from wherever you're sitting, like if you're on a train or in a Starbucks, whatever. But they diminish the ability to network and foster those in-person relationships that in-person meetings allow.
Yeah. Then I'll read my conclusion real quick. So both remote and on-site working conditions offer unique advantages and challenges. Remote work provides flexibility, increased productivity, and a healthier work-life balance, but it also poses challenges such as isolation and potential distractions at home. On the other hand, on-site fosters collaboration, stronger company culture, and immediate access to resources, but it can also lead to commuting stress and far less flexibility. Ultimately, in my honest opinion, the choice should remain with each and every individual preference. Job requirements such as the Twitter thing and Doge situations, and overall organizational goals. Truthfully, by understanding the benefits and drawbacks of each model, organizations can create a hybrid approach that leverages the strengths of both locations, ensuring a productive and supportive environment for all employees, or allowing those who would prefer to just be on site all the time to maybe work at home just like maybe once a week, get some home
Yeah,
time, let you do some laundry, stuff like that.
definitely.
Yeah. All right.
Awesome.
Full
Well, if
minute.
y'all are ready to cut that meeting off, I mean, I think that was a really good discussion.
Yeah, that
Absolutely.
was great.
Absolutely enjoyed it. All right. It was nice meeting up with you guys.
Yeah,
And
you too.
oh, wait, real quick. So do we post the whole thing as it is, or do we
I
edit? What do you
I
guys think?
believe so. I believe that you just post the recording of the meeting, and then there was also that the discussion paper or reflection paper,
Hmm.
whatever it was.
Yes. Yes.
I think you just go over like what you talked about a little bit and like any challenges that you noticed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right.
Well,
Well,
I'm gonna go ahead and get started on that, but it was nice meeting you all.
yeah,
nice
nice meeting
meeting you
you too.
guys.
All right.
Bye.
See ya.